Hi, everyone. This week on the Wealth Cafe, we are sitting down for a coffee conversation, and I am so excited to be joined by Clara Wang. So, to tell you a little bit more about her, Clara is the founder of Clara Wang Photography. She is your go-to visual content partner and female-owned product-based brands photographer. Her specialty is creating strategic content that goes beyond that product photo and headshot, shining the light on the client's craft and trade and telling the story of the maker behind the product. This whole package approach allows brands to not only stand out, but also scale faster across various marketing channels, which we are going to talk all about today. Storytelling photography for your brand is a revenue generating business asset, and it is the fastest way to connect with your audience. And we will share Clara's information here at the end so you can all connect with her. But I will say that Clara is my brand photographer and did such an amazing job capturing my images. So I am so excited to have her here today. Welcome, Clara.
Thank you. I still remember that photo shoot. It was so fun.
It was so fun, and we were fighting against the rain, running to try and get everything done. But I look back at it now too, and it's like it's so cool to see the evolution of like, oh my gosh, like you'll always look back on those first photos and then think, oh my goodness, this is where we started, and I can't wait to watch the progression as we take new photos and continue to see things evolve. So you and I talk a lot about branding.
Yes. Live and breathe it.
Live it and breathe it. We talk about it in our own personal lives, for our businesses. So we wanted to share our conversation today about some of the things that we talk about when it comes to branding. So from you as the expert in this industry, can you give us, just so we're all kind of on the same page here, what in the world is a personal brand? Because, and you and I have had this conversation that it's become this common phrase that we throw around. And I think sometimes we don't actually know what the true definition is. So I'd love to hear it from your opinion.
Yeah, so I think the word personal brand has become such a buzzword, right? And I think it's very often misunderstood and frankly oversimplified. A lot of people think, oh, your personal brand is actually what you look like on social media. Is your Instagram grid like very trendy and polished and, it looks professional, but in my opinion, I think the personal branding part goes a lot deeper than that. It really is more about your identity versus your image, if that makes any sense. So it's not just about what you look like on social media, but are people clearly understanding who you are? Is that like quite clear to your audience? Are you articulating what your unique value is? What is it that makes Caroline Tannis different from any other, wealth management people out there? Are you communicating it consistently across all touch points? Like we were talking a little bit about earlier, if one of the social media platforms go away, are you showing up sort of with the same story, with the same personal brand across your website, your social media, your newsletter? And more importantly, when people actually meet you in person, does it match? So that's how I think it's so important. But also, I think it's not a trend. It's not like the hottest color or the latest video or the meme or the TikTok dance. I think it's a very strategic process where it takes time to sort of sit down and figure out, does your personal brand sort of reflect your personal values, your professional goals? Does that align with what your audience needs or what you're trying to offer? So it's more of like a long-term asset for your business and your brand versus just a concept. So I
And
hope that makes
I love the concept of building an asset. And it's true in the sense of, I love what you said as well about it's how you is what you're putting online the same thing that people get when they meet you? And to
sense.
me, that is one of the biggest things when I am building the Tanis Financial Group and the Wealth Cafe brand, and as well as my own, personal brand, they are cohesive, right? It's very much so what you see is what you get here, right? Some days it's me traveling around the world, and other days I have not stood up from my desk. And that's part of but it's also, I want people to feel like they can see both sides of that. And especially with social media, we can hide so much or just portray a certain image, but people want that real, authentic connection.
Yeah. And the word, even the word authentic, we talked about this before,
Yeah.
it's so overused. But
Hmm.
I think authenticity really means, are you genuinely being who you really are
Yeah.
to your audience? And, if you're not authentic, it's not sustainable. It's kind of like a lie upon lie upon lie. And all of a sudden, I'm not saying it's a lie, but it's like a persona that's not real,
Yeah.
and it's you can't keep up with it. But then if it's genuinely who you are and you're truly passionate about it, then it's not hard to sort of live that entire personal branding, whether you're meeting in person, whether you're giving a speech, a speaker, like something that you do all the time. Like even on here, when I meet you in person, when we talk on the phone, when you're hosting an event, the Caroline Tannis I know is the same person like across all the channels. Even when you're talking on the video on your Instagram, I'm like, I know that woman. It's not like, whoa, who is that?
Yes.
I don't know. I didn't know she golfed, but then when you talk about golfing, it's the same like persona when you're talking about financial planning. So I know it's genuinely you.
That is honestly the biggest compliment anyone has ever given me because, but it's also exhausting, right? I mean, and don't get me wrong, for some people it is their job, right? Where it's like
Yeah,
they bring a persona. I mean, we all know, who those people are, and for part of them it's a comedy shtick, and for others it's they don't know how to be their true selves online. I'm trying not to use the word authenticity so hard right now. It's like
it is.
it's become ingrained in us, and because of that it's lost, like you said, so much of its value. And it's like, okay, go be authentic, what does that mean? Okay, go build a personal brand, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And so it's wanting to have people feel that same way. I want people to have the same feeling if they come over to my house for a glass of wine, or if I meet them randomly on the street. Like, I want you to always have that same connection. And it's, for some people it's more natural than others. So I'm curious, how do you coach people, especially when you are doing photography sessions, or even if it's the owner with their product, like how are you helping to bring out that personal branding side of them and who
I
they really
think
are?
one of the most crucial questions I ask my clients, and I think it works so well for you as well, is because you know exactly who you're talking to. You're not trying to talk to everyone. You're talking to that woman who's wanting to build like her ambitious dream life, business life, using financial planning, having the financial freedom so she could dream big and live her thriving life. Like you're just talking to these people and it really resonates. And I think one of the biggest, not mistakes, but one of the biggest, like, oh no, stresses is I have to talk to everyone because everybody has to be my client. But that's when your branding gets really diluted because you're trying to do too much, you're trying to say too much. So I think true personal branding is really understanding your niche. The word niche is also very
Yep.
overused, but I think it's more important of what your specialty is, what you're really passionate about. Who is it that you really want to work with or serve, and who are your people? And so if you're talking to your people, you'll genuinely just show up as yourself. So a few things before we sit down, is to go through with my clients, like where they feel most comfortable in, like which is the environment that they want to portray themselves in. Like for you, it was dragging a luggage down the street, like
Dragging
looking
is
like
the
you're heading
emphasis.
off somewhere, right? That was so fun. But also capturing your process, how they work with clients. So people are very clear exactly what they're selling. And then in those little moments of those pictures, you reveal your personality. This could be little things like how you smile, how you pose. Remember those balloon pictures? Like that's
Oh
just
yeah,
you,
those are so
Caroline.
fun. Yeah.
And your influencer bowler hat, that was something that you really liked. But you were also very big into doing like speaker events. So there's that professional side of you. And we have pictures of you like in your blazer and all that. So it just needs to really focus on who you want people to see you as and who you want to show up as. Um, but also with little points of how you work and how you're different.
Mhm.
So I think that those are some of the questions that I always make sure our clients sit down together and sort of process and think through. what is their value, and maybe what is the journey that had brought you to this point? Like, what is it that you went through in the past before that got you to this point, and how can we sort of inject that into your pictures to show people who you genuinely are through those?
I think that's also what creates, you talk about these photos are an asset for you and to help you build a brand that is even more so an asset in your life. And it's one thing any of us can show up, right? I mean, iPhone cameras have really come a long way, right? It's anyone can go out and say click, click, click and take a couple photos and move on. But what's different and what you're taking the time to build and invest by doing photos is capturing a brand, right? And you're taking that time. And I remember doing your questionnaire ahead of time, and answering a lot of these questions. And anyone can go and grab a camera or an iPhone and go take these. It's strategically thinking through. And I remember showing up on the day of my photo shoot and you were like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I could see visually in my head, I was like, oh, okay. And I could write a post about this or I can use it for that. And I could tell that you had thought out behind. And even when I see other photos that you post with other brands, I'm like, I can see that and understand, okay, this is how, this product is being used here. This is how this is, playing into this. It's more than just the photo, if that.
Yeah. So not to like toot my own horn,
Let's do it. That's what
but
we're here for.
one of the biggest compliments I got from my client is sometimes I go outside the box. Like I have these crazy ideas and I do these crazy like shots. And she's a health coach and she wanted to do a sugar detox sort of program. And I'm like, what if we had you on the floor trying to reach for a tub of Ben and Jerry's? Like
We've all
sometimes
been there.
it's that message of the opposite,
Yeah.
that really resonates with people because it talks about their pain points.
Hmm.
Um, but we did a whole bunch of other series of photos for her. But at the end, she came back to me about a month or two later and she said, Clara, there's something about your pictures that made me realize I could envision myself even more, doing more than what I offered. I never realized I could fit into this category or speak to this niche, but somehow your photos triggered it. I'm not saying I'm a magician, but I'm also saying these pictures, this personal branding exercise, it's not just about connecting with your audience. Sometimes it's reminding the woman herself what she can do or who she can be and sort of like envision yourself,
Thank
bless
you.
you in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think that is amazing because sometimes we get so busy and caught up in the stresses of the present. We don't think too much about the future in the most positive sense. Like, I
Yeah.
can do that versus just a financial goal, a number I have to hit, these number of revenue or these number of clients I have to get. So hopefully that serves people more and more down the road.
I think it also pulls out, like when you're taking these photos, it pulls out this creative side that a lot of us don't always necessarily get to play around with, right? And people assume I just sit here and I look at numbers and the stock market and that analysis. And I'm like, there is a lot of creativity to what I do, but I forget to be sometimes creative in my own life. So then when you're taking this day, which can be so hard because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to take a day to do photos. Like I should be working, I should be this, that, da, 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 da. And it's like you give yourself that space to say, like, oh, what if we did a photo like this? Because maybe in the future I want to start doing X, Y, and Z. And you kind of have that time to step back and dream that a lot of us don't ever take. So I think that's also part of the space that flows during the day.
Like that dress that is like a size too small when you're going through your organizing your closet, but then you keep it anyways because you're like maybe, and then you
Maybe
sort of
one
have,
day.
oh, maybe one day. I don't know. I don't know if that was a good analogy, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, we all have that dress, if not three, is sitting in our closet. So let's dive into, we kind of talk about how we see our own future brands evolving during a photo shoot day in the bigger picture, right? We got the news this week that it looks like the TikTok ban could potentially be furthering. So a lot of people are concerned in that sense, because I have seen so many, even especially too in the corporate world, when I'm working with corporate clients, a lot of people that have now gone on social media to start creating this personal brand for themselves. outside of their 9 to 5 job, whether it's a creative outlet or they do want to leave corporate or it's just, they're hopping on the bandwagon, whatever it might be, there's a big fear around, okay, this platform might be taken away from us. So, how I'm going to break it down two parts and we can talk about how do personal brands need to now continue to evolve with this and how do they handle a platform being taken away? And how do we make sure that we aren't identified by just this one platform or space?
I would say, well, first of all, social media is beyond our control. Whatever the algorithm is, however it works, sometimes I feel like social media is a great way to just gain exposure, but it's not truly strategic. I think the truly strategic part is your website, your email database, like something you have control over. Um, so I truly believe if you have a personal brand that is very grounded, very cohesive, and very certain of who you're talking to, who you want to show up, no matter what platform you move across, you have this whole asset of images, right? And perhaps also brand messaging that you've written down in words that's very clear, like your bio is there, your mission statement is there, and it's clearly in line with how you're showing up like visually.
Mhm.
And so when you combine these two, the transition from one platform to another should not be difficult because it's already there. And that's why it's a business asset. So genuinely, you need to be clear as to who you want to talk to, who you want to serve, how you are different, and how you want to show up as, and what your story is. People love hearing stories. And if your story is consistent, makes sense, is enticing, then it doesn't matter what platform you're at. It could be a video, it could be a post, it could be a blog, but as long as the message is clear and people understand what you're saying, I really think it shouldn't matter which platform you're on, but time is money, right? There's only so much time we have in a day. So I think your website and your email database is truly where you should be investing in. Even speaker events, if that's your thing.
I think it also plays into the idea of it's funny because I catch myself every once in a while. I'll be like, oh, I can't post this video over on this platform because it won't do as well. But then I remind myself, I'm like, well, this is exactly who you are, right? Like, this is the person that you post on Instagram is the same person that shows up on this platform or, on this one. And it's like, sometimes I'm like, you know what? Let's just take the same post and put it on all three because it's just who you are and just sending it out there rather than trying to play a game and an algorithm. And yes, don't get me wrong, we all do things to, fight the song and dance and try to get along with it. But at the end of the day, they aren't ours, which is a really scary realization that I don't think, it was always that haha, like these things can change. But until the TikTok ban came out, I mean, I know so many people who that's their livelihood, right? Is getting paid off of their TikTok posts and whatever it might be. And so to see this go away is scary, but it's also the realization that it's not yours.
Yeah. Yeah. But it could be multi-tiered, right?
Yeah.
Because, we're all very efficient communicators. Like social media could be for you to attract people that you may not necessarily reach and
Yeah.
then sort of funnel them into, your more direct forms of communication. But yeah, social media is sometimes it's a love-hate game. I don't know. I feel that
Oh
way
yeah.
sometimes.
Sometimes a little more hate than love.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is that whole you have to play both sides. And so which no one wants to hear, right? Everyone just wants the quick solve solution of, okay, let's go do this, let's go do that, and just be done. And we all want the magic pill for the solution. But it is a reminder that your personal brand and whatever it is that you're trying to build is something that you have to continue to nurture and move across platforms. And if it all went away tomorrow, it needs to be I always think of it as a piece of my puzzle. It's not the whole puzzle, right?
Mhm.
It's not the entire way that people find me or work with me. It is a method of the entire puzzle. We'll keep going with that analogy.
Yeah. And like just like your business as well, your personal brand evolves. Like we evolve as people. But that should evolve too. Like your personal brand should evolve with your business. And it's like you said, it needs nurturing, it's like a plant that needs to grow. And so your brand identity, your personal identity should evolve as well. You should not stay the same as you were like 5 years ago.
And neither are your clients. Whether you're building, whether you just have followers who are following your journey and your story as somebody who works in corporate, whether you're a business owner, or whether you're a service-based business where you're continuing, you're going to evolve, and so are the people following you, right? We're not stagnant. We have, it's funny too. I'll be working on a financial plan, and it's you watch clients go through the big milestones. Okay, they bought a house. Okay, now they had a baby. Oh my goodness, now we're sending this baby off to college. This is not a baby anymore. And part of that is me growing along with them. And I think one of the coolest things is being able to share my own life and saying, and I always know that my clients are equally as invested in my life sometimes. And they're like, how's your dog? How's this? How was your trip? As I am in theirs. And I think that's part of what makes things different and creates a different experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes back to the whole authenticity building trust thing because
Yeah.
people trust that whatever you're showing is true, it's real. And then, they'll continue to follow you as you evolve. The connection will be deeper and then you're different. You're not like every other influencer who's out there. They all look the same and at the end of the day you may not even remember their names. But when you share something that's genuine and it attracts the right people, people will remember you.
And that I think plays into some of the fear that is wrapped up in the TikTok ban, right? Is that people haven't created their own brands or identities. So it's like, I'm not going to go and follow you to another platform if that's the case, because you're no different than the other 10 people. I'm not going to go and be like, all right, let me go follow this person. Let me go follow that person.
Yeah.
It's human nature, right? Like we are invested in our own time. It's just the reality. Like I'd love to support every single person in business on this planet, but we can't do it. And so with this, I think there's the concern for people who haven't built up these brands that are strong enough or created a community. I'll go into that one too, where people are saying, no, I want to see their kids grow up. No, I want to make sure, I want to know what happens in their life. And I think that's part of the problem that people are afraid of.
Yeah, yeah. And so one of the things I think is truly important, like these brand image libraries that I create for my clients, which is truly a business asset, is that we sit down and make sure that these images represent different content pillars. So
Mhm.
there's part of your personal branding of who you are, how you work with your clients, who are your clients, what are the challenges is, but then how you blend it like between your personal brand and your business plan and your business brand. Like, is it hand in hand? Does it make sense to people? Is it memorable? Does it truly represent, your story and what you're telling? So it's all very strategic. It's not just something that, you'll show up and be like, all right, let's do a 3 hour brand shoot and just take beautiful pictures of you. No,
Yeah.
each picture is very strategically thought out and what the story is that it represents behind each photo.
Yeah. And I think too, people, they don't want to put in the time into it. It's a lot of, and I'm curious actually too, do you see some resistance behind people wanting to, because I can think of it in terms of financial planning when people are like, oh, I have to take the time to think about what I want. And I'm like, yes, the input is going to affect the output of what you're going to get. So I'd love to hear too from the brand photography side. Do you see people trying to resist, like, oh, I have to do this prep, we're gonna think about it, like I just want to show up and take photos.
Yeah, yeah, all the time because they just think the magic is in the equipment,
Mm.
but actually, the magic is in the process of the photographer being able to see what the subject has, and the subject has to be clear on their story. Because a lot of times, I think there is a downfall of photographers making a lot of assumptions Like they don't take the time to sort of carve out the story for each client. And so the pictures become, they're beautiful, gorgeous pictures, but they don't really say anything.
Mm.
And that's when it's a pity, it's a waste
Yeah.
because it's a picture of you, like even headshots, although it's just literally a shot of your head. Like it can say a lot more by the way you pose, what you wear, how you smile. Your eyes really do the talking. Like there is a lot of folds and thought process that should go into it. There are people who are like, well, you can just Photoshop and make me look like
Mhm.
thinner, younger, more like this, more like that. But that's not genuinely you. I'm not saying, you need to show up and look as authentic as you just dropped off your kids at school, but more like, be your genuine self so you're comfortable. And then when you see yourself on there and it looks like you and feels like you, the confidence just like feels a little different. You feel confident putting that content out there. You feel confident sharing that photo. Um, a bad photo doesn't mean the lighting is bad, the photography style is bad. A bad photo is when it doesn't feel anything like you and it doesn't share anything. It just looks generic. And that's when your brand loses potential clients that
Mhm.
you can connect with. That's when your brand loses money because these clients are not going to follow you and you are just a drop in the ocean and blend into the competition.
Yeah, and we have the endless scroll right now, right? Like you could just keep going and keep going, and what is it that makes them stop? And it's the fact that you can stop and say like, "Oh, wow, like this tells a story," and this, and once again, it comes back to time, right? Like people wanting to slow down, and we live in such a fast-paced society, especially here in Jersey, and that people are running from one thing to the next, and it does take time and effort, but in the long run, it is building out a different type of asset, which I think is beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's nice to wonder about other people's stories as
Yeah.
well. There's a new term called sonder, where it's like you sit there and wonder, like, what is the story behind that woman? Or
Yeah.
what's that story behind the guy who's wearing that weird sweater when you people watch?
Oh, I love
Like,
that.
I don't know if you heard that term, but like, it's
No.
like everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. But what is it?
Yeah, it is. And it's about pausing and building your own story. And I think getting curious about other people's stories, which is beautiful. So I love to end every episode by asking a question that stumps everyone. So don't worry.
Oh
Um,
boy.
what is one thing that you do every day that makes you feel wealthy?
Huh.
Yeah.
You know what? It's like, it's gonna sound really stupid. It's
No,
making
I've
my
had everything. So
coffee. It's
mm,
making my coffee and putting in my very bougie oat milk creamer in there. Like, I can do that.
I love
Like,
that.
I don't have to spend money at Starbucks. I can make my own coffee and still be bougie.
It's funny too, because it's always the financial advisor. People are like, oh, she's going to go tell me to cut off my coffee and this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, no, you have no idea how much I invested in my at-home coffee setup, but I will still go out and go to a coffee shop and pick one up every once in a while. But like, I love my at-home coffee ritual. So for me, it's always the same. And it's like, I love to have fancy coffee creamer, and I'm not, it's to
Fancy
me,
coffee creamer. That's what it is. Like, I can do it.
right. And that's empowering. And you pour it in, you're like, look at me. And then you start your day off the right way.
Yep, there you go. Oh, that was a
So
hard question, but it came.
I love it. I love your answer too. So, where can people find you if they want to connect with you, see your photos, talk anything brand photography? And I will also point out that Clara is one of our amazing authors who is in Rise and Find, which is available for pre-order, and physical copies will be available shortly. So, I will be linking the book in the show notes, but where else can people connect with you?
The best way is my website, which is clarawangphotography.com, but I am definitely most active on Instagram and my handle is Clara Wang Photography. So yeah, I am so thankful for you, Caroline, to pull all these 13 women together. I've started talking to a few of them and they're all so amazing that we all sort of have the same ambition and we're talking to the same people, like just helping women live their best lives. And I'm like, oh, I'm not the only one out there. It's nice that we're all working towards this like goal and so we can all drink our fancy coffee with our fancy creamers.
Exactly. That's what we're all on a mission to do. Although we might have a couple tea drinkers, but we will somehow find a way to forgive them in that. So thank you so much for coming on today, and make sure you all connect with Clara to learn more about personal branding, brand photography, whether you are in the corporate space, your own brand, and really her specialty is also product-based businesses. And so she is an incredible resource, and make sure you check out Rise and Find.